It looks like you're in a yurt.
Do you know what? The amount of people that say that, Corin, they sort of go, hey, are you in a yurt? And I'm like, no, I'm in my loft. It's literally my loft with all the junk around and stuff. But this is my office as well now. So it's the place to be. How are you? All right?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm in LA. I just had the screening of Whistle last night, the sort of West Coast premiere. And it was a really good night. It was really nice to see it with an audience.
It's always good to see it with an audience, right? It just makes you feel so alive. And oh my God, that must have felt amazing. It was the first time, paying type audience, premiere type points rather than test screenings. Was it the kind of first time?
Yeah, I mean, we had our sort of official premiere in Texas Fantastic Fest in September. And that was amazing, but it was also kind of like, it is a diehard horror audience. At the festival, and it was the closing night of the festival after sort of 10 days or so of, 100 movies or something. So this one last night was nice to just see it in Santa Monica with a kind of packed out audience, and just had a very good, really great response to, I'm still so sort of close to it in a lot of ways. So I'm still gauging and letting go of it.
Yeah, that's always the hard bit, isn't it, for a filmmaker, to let go of your sort of baby. You still sit there and watch it and go, oh, could have just trimmed a little bit off that. Oh, why? That VFX shot on the eye. I just wish I could have done a little more. Right? We can never let them go.
It is a gradual, I was going to say grieving process.
I think that's great.
You are letting go of, you're letting your child go to school on their own finally. And it takes a little bit of time to do that. So I felt it like last night, a bit more of like I got it at arm's length. And
I've got it moved away. It's that, I think it's a lot of filmmakers as well. It's that once you've made it and actually you do finally let it go, and it's still hard to let it go, we kind of don't watch them again. Are you kind of in that boat as well, where once you've sort of done the premieres and you've done the screenings and the Q&As, you then tend to go, I'm not going to watch this again for maybe 5 years? I don't know how you feel with your movies at the moment. Is that something you do or don't do?
Kind of. Depends on the project, I suppose. But yeah, actually, there's so much you've invested in a project, a film or a TV show. There is a part of you that I think has to disconnect psychologically from it in order to then not only sort of creatively rejudge it or take in what you did, but you just sort of have to distance yourself a bit from just, even though it was, a really sort of largely very pleasurable process and of making it and the memories of making it. It's just it just takes so much out of you in a way when you're making these things. So
It does. Yeah, it's a weird trauma style situation. I think after I made my first feature, I was 2 months later, I was waking up with cold sweats. It's still waking up my message going, why are you here? I need to get the shot. I need to get this. It was just so incompetent. I think it was the first one was the hardest for that. But
agree. Yeah, I'd have really bizarre nightmares all the time of being on set with shot and no one's built the wall that you said you needed. And being I remember exactly that, waking up and being in my bedroom and my wife there, and I was in the shot still. So
exactly the same.
You're straining your every sort of part of your brain and body is trying to get the film to be the way you want it. So it's just residual memory in your brain, I guess, is still active.
Yeah, I think it's harder as soon as you've just finished it. I find the edit a much more relaxing. I say it's not relaxing, it's not the right word, but less intense sometimes process. When you're on set, it's so full on, right? You've got this amount of days to get these shots with this time and these actors. In the edit, you can go, all right, well, we'll look at that one tomorrow. You don't get a chance to do that when you're filming. What's your favorite process? Do you prefer the prep writing side of it, shooting it, editing, or is it a mix depending on feelings and what's going on with the project at the time?
It's a good one. I mean, I genuinely all parts of the process have big kind of pros and cons for me. And, I love nothing more than when I get excited about an idea in the first place, whether it's one of my own that I've come up with and I'm writing up and I'm dreaming up a potential movie. Of which, I've had at least 50 that haven't made it to the screen yet. So there's that. Or whether I'm reading someone else's script and you're going through it and you're kind of hoping it's going to maintain itself and tell a complete story. And then as I'm doing that, I'm sort of dreaming up, the vision and the visuals through the sort of excitement of getting a production together and meeting the crew and going to a different country and going on location scouts and the sort of energy of that initial phase.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kind of, the amount of, well, I don't know what, like the process of actually the shoot is always just so all consuming. It's sort of hard to enjoy. And then I sort of look back after it and realize like, wow, what we do, what we did. So, and then I always feel quite relaxed in post and in edit, and actually just like, it's just you and the editor, and you're just sort of sitting, actually seeing the film you made and telling that story.
Remaking it. Yeah.
Don't really know which is my favorite because they all sort of demand a lot. And I have to like, it's only art in hindsight when I kind of can appreciate the whole thing in a way.
Yes. Yeah, it can. I think it's that before you made the first one, a lot of our listeners are at that stage where sometimes they're not made the feature, but they want to. Can you remember those sort of days when you were kind of going, gosh, all I want to do is be on set making my first feature? Because before that, you're hoping, you'd made music videos before that, you made shorts, you'd made all sorts of bits and pieces, you came from the VFX background. But getting your first feature made it feels like a big hurdle to overcome. Did you feel that way? And after you'd done it, did things change?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It is like a dream that you sort of wonder will ever happen. And I got to a point where I was sort of like, you're going through the motions of lots of meetings, and obviously you have to sort of build yourself up and kind of somehow create a certain confidence that you can't possibly have until you've done a feature. It's like anything. You only really learn what it's like when you do it, and you have to. I had done a lot of music videos, so I'd got a lot of sort of experience on set, working with teams under great pressure, creating stuff. But it's still nothing like the sort of marathon of a 20, 30, 40-day shoot with a crew and like managing that whole show and storyline and actors and all the effects or whatever it is. So. Can't remember what you asked.
Well, no, but I think you're absolutely right. It's that dreamlike thing. And I love the fact that you touched on that. Because even now, looking back at my first feature, it feels dreamlike. It feels like it doesn't happen. If there wasn't photos or behind the scenes, you'd kind of go, did that happen? Yeah. Like with the Hallow, it was such a great film, and it also put you on the map. But it had these amazing it's almost like a metaphor for parental anxiety. And, it had all this sort of the fragility of the family unit in there, which you'd put in, and it's a creature feature as well. And you designed the creatures, you had all that. And maybe this is a good time to talk about how you actually, got that off the ground and got it made. Obviously, you got these music videos behind you, you'd made Butterfly, you short. You had stuff behind you, but still, someone taking a chance on you is a big thing. Before we dive into Whistle and that world, it's so interesting how you get your first movie made.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, and I remember the last question as well to do with that sort of what it's like. And when you're in the film making that first film, you are just sort of, well, I was anyway, sort of like coasting on the belief that you're capable of doing it, even though secretly you're not sure and you have never done it before. And then it's sort of the people around you carrying you as well, and like hopefully they were wonderful. I had a sort of insane experience making the Hallow, just like challenges every single day. But I had key people who were really like doing brilliant work and watching out for you at the same time, which made a huge difference because it's so sort of precarious in a way on a low budget independent movie. And the Hallow, I mean, I've never, still don't know what the rules are or, what the route is. And people always ask us, how do you get the film off the ground? And other than the sort of constant desire, dedication, belief, effort, to kind of keep hustling and doing work that kind of led to it. So, after doing my degree at Wimbledon School of Art, I ended up going on this course of trying to make movies, and without any money or many connections. Initially, I made a stop motion film, Butterfly. It took 5 years and was a sort of, at the time, pre-YouTube and everything else, was like, I've just got to try and make a movie and get it in a film festival and get noticed somehow and get to make a feature. And, you know, it was sort of that was the only way I knew. And that's kind of worked, but it took a bit longer because when I finished Butterfly, what it did get me was music videos. And then I did 10 years of music videos. And while I was making those and using those as a sort of way to keep demonstrating my thing, my style, my storytelling in music videos, and I was developing 4 different sort of stories and films of my own, horror movies, monster movies, but without a kind of knowledge of how to really get to do them. And actually, they were all such large scale. The Hallow was the only one that was remotely contained. And it wasn't really contained because I was like, I want to do a creature feature movie and, you know, in this way and show the effects and see the monsters. And you know, I didn't like the idea of doing a low budget first film that was sort of just set in a house and you didn't really see much. So it was almost like my own naivety held me back, in the sense of I had lots of meetings over that time with people who liked my music videos and were excited and wanted to work with me. But my ideas, especially in the UK, were always a bit too ambitious and big, and the budgets that was required was more than I should be allowed as a first-time filmmaker to take a risk on. So I didn't understand. I didn't know that, and in a way, it just took a long time. If someone sort of just sat me down and go, "Here it is, you know, keep your first film to at least under 1 million. You know, contain the story more. Blah blah blah. Give me a set of rules." I might have sort of, although there's a part of me that would be like breaking out of like, no, I want to do the more ambitious thing than that. So so it's sort of, the ambition maybe almost held me back in a way to get to make the Hallow. It took about 8 years from sort of like coming up with the outline and working on it to kind of meeting producers and then getting, you know, script after script after script draft and time moving on, and then, you know, doing other projects. And there's a point when I was like, this is just not going to happen. And then it did get, you know, greenlit, so to speak, with the first proper finance. And then I think there was probably another year after that. And a lot of it was also to do with the whole kind of, but can he work with actors question?
Yes, that question. Yeah, you've done stop motion, music videos, but they're like, yeah, but of course I can. But they don't know that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Everyone comes from different backgrounds and different routes into to making the film. And some people have done like all the film school and all the training and, you know, have made loads of short films, and other people have just got a really interesting story to tell. And my sort of way in was that I'd gone through more of a sort of arts background and effects and sculpture and that side. But as I sort of came up against the barrier of, but can he work with actors? Then I started incorporating actors a lot into my last sort of couple of years of music videos, and sort of would write more story-based music videos. And I was pleased to be able to spend some record company money on a band I hopefully liked with the track I liked, but kind of like create a story and get an actor like I got Joseph Morlin on a Horrible Crows video, and Devlin and Ed Sheeran and actors surrounding him on a Devlin video. It was a sort of the way to then sort of go, you know, here you go. Yes, the sort of, you know, calling card or whatever. So when it finally was actually out in Ireland, I mean, there was quite a long prep actually, and amazing location scouting out there all over Ireland. And it sort of started to feel real. And then, you know, suddenly you're like in prep and then you're actually shooting, and it's like, oh my God, all of that 10 years of dreaming about this. And then there's the fear that sort of like suddenly consumes you.
Yes.
Can you really do it?
Yeah, and it does. And it's so true. It's so interesting you said that. What was that moment like when you felt like you had the green light? You know, because it's so hard to explain it, because you almost think it's going to fall away again. Because yours was 8 years, mine was 10 years, I think, from me saying I'm going to make my first film to actually making it.
Right.
And it's just that whole time was someone saying, yes, it's going to happen, and them just lying or talking bullshit. Or it was someone saying, I've got some money, and it faded away. We've got this star, and it faded away. you having Joseph Maul, I think, really helped because obviously he stars in the Hallow as well. So I think that is a bonus. But that little moment when you thought, oh my God, I'm actually directing a feature. This is it. Can you remember?
And I think even then I was way more naive and much less experienced to the concept of the green light, or this like you sort of, it feels like you're waiting and then this big green traffic light lights up and you go, yeah, we're making it, and you're on. So in reality, the green light can come and go and turn into amber light, red light, and nothing like. So now I'm way more skeptical, and it's just like an ongoing, thing to keep making stuff until we're actually on set making stuff. But it was, I mean, I can't honestly remember when it was like there was any sort of a phone call that said we're making the movie, except that at some point we were in Ireland. And then we were like, oh, we're on day one. It's like, oh my God. And then it's just like kind of like war every single day of just trying to capture the vision that had, been devised over the last 10 years or so. And that's that's the learning curve as well as a director, where you're like, it doesn't matter. I'm a firm believer in so much planning and prep and storyboarding and floor planning, and that all is so valuable. But there's still the coming to terms with, in your first movie particularly, like you can't get all of the things that you've like dreamed up and laid out. You can get some of them, and hopefully, if you've been the closer to reality you've been, the more you can achieve.
Yeah, that's so true. I think you set up with those standards. You think, oh no, it's right up here. I've got a 10, and this is going to be a 10, and then you go down, you compromise, you go, okay, we've got a room here, we're filming in with white walls. Okay, that wasn't my idea here. This was a whole opulent stage. And you do have to sort of challenge your brain. I think that's when we become the most creative, especially in our first films. And, later on it does become, hey, we can try and save this in some way. I wanted to talk to you about the sort of the magical creatures that you do create in your films as well. Who Will I Become When I Die, especially in Whistle, is fantastic. And some of the sort of beautiful imagery you portrayed here was fantastic and really perfect for horror fans, in that sort of light. It was just like, I loved it. Me loving those kind of films and the Final Destination sort of moments, but also you've got your own twist on it and your own, which I really liked. I thought it was really interesting. So again, you're talking about the fear of losing something, whether it's a parent or child. It kind of connects, doesn't it, to Whistle from the Hallow, which I think is really good. What is it you kind of look for within that creatures or those monsters when you're designing them and you're the one drawing them and creating them? How do you find them?
Thanks. Yeah. There's a lot there.
Yeah. Basically, give us all your secrets, Corin. Come on. No.
I think ultimately I can sort of tie it all back to being a child when you are a blank canvas and you experience things for the first time, whether they're like, going on your first school trip to Wales and going in a cave for the first time, and you burns that experience into your head, whether it's a positive or traumatic, or going on a roller coaster for the first time, or seeing a movie for the first time, and those first movies that you see, whether you're sort of 6 years old watching King Kong, or sort of Ray Harryhausen movies or Morph on TV, things that just like utterly captivated me and sort of burnt into my brain, imprinted as a sort of like first time experience, completely captivated and blown away by that. I didn't question that it wasn't real. It was just like a magic experience of seeing Indiana Jones or Empire Strikes Back at the cinema. And then with horror, which is sort of the most, you could say, extreme experience, because you're getting actual sort of shocks and adrenaline hits, and seeing Alien or seeing The Thing or Evil Dead 2 was like an extension of like slightly older, or sort of between the ages of sort of 10 or 12. It was like the next level of experiencing things which was a challenge, and they were scary, but I loved them, and I loved that these monsters particularly existed, but they don't exist in real life. but I want them to somehow, I want to live in that same feeling that I felt when I was young. And that's sort of the thing that's never changed. And that's sort of, in a way, what excites me about film, and in any genre really, but we're talking about creatures and things, because they're the thing which I suppose taps back into this sort of childhood feeling of like really wanting them to be to exist, and the magic to exist. So looking for either stories to tell with monsters or creatures in, and then when it gets to the chance to actually make a film about them, to try to render them in as sort of detailed and with as much sort of texture and depth, and treat them as real things, or whatever the sort of mythology is. And in the case of the Hallow, it was like, how do we tell a story of Irish folklore and mythology and make it feel like it's also like science and nature, and just is as real as everything else around it, and involving practical effects. And I don't know, I don't think this is on video, is it? But like, since but you mentioned, like, so this was my sort of drawings of creatures in the Hallow, and this was my first what would our fairies look like?
Look at those fairies. Wow.
Yeah, based on folklore and ideas, and straddling the line like between folklore, mythology, science, and nature, and cinema, and then horror, and figuring out sort of set pieces and ways that we can encounter.
It's incredible. Even just for those of you who are listening to the podcast, which all of you are, Corin has shown me some incredible pictures that he's drawn before he even shot the Hallow, I imagine. So this is a while ago, and he's got that next to him now, and they're just really beautiful to see. Were you always able to draw? Is this something you were always able to do? Because I struggle with it. I struggle with storyboards, drawing images that I want to get on my head. You're good with it.
Definitely has been just something which I think, when I was young, I was the third child, and my mum and dad, particularly at age 5, my dad had a really bad accident that sort of he got hit off a motorbike, and it like this sort of shattered his leg, and it hit his head, and he was sort of out of order for a good year or so. And I think my mum had to cope with the sort of 3 children, sort of husband, injured husband, and a lot of animals and things. And I know that they just gave me like loads of paper and pens. And I mainly just drew all the sort of from age 5, and I drew, and the pictures that I've seen are like really gory images of like Greek myths and legends, and like lots of like minotaurs with their heads cut off, and I don't know, it's sort of like weird.
The family, your parents are like, we should probably take him to a psychologist. And you're like, no, Mum, this is just my imagination. I'm fine. Yeah.
I know we had all these books on like the Odyssey and Iliad and the Odyssey, and I got into fighting fantasy books, and I loved sort of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff and fantasy.
I loved it.
Horror.
Yeah.
So I drew a lot. It became, definitely something I felt really comfortable in, just drawing. And then that led to, I guess, when I wanted to get into sort of making monsters, and was seeing horror movies and wanting to do makeup effects and stuff. That led me to sort of train in that area and do sculpture and learn how to do mold making. So that's sort of my grandfather was an incredible illustrator who I spent a lot of time looking at his artwork, and I got a lot of influence and inspiration from his, this sort of biro style scribbly technique. I probably adopted from him, because you just as a kid, you sit and look at how things are done.
What an inspiration. That must have been so great to just sit, and because he would have helped you as well, and sort of just, oh no, think about this, and shading here, and this work. I've got this book here, look at this, right? This is rough, drawing in 2 strokes and 3 moves, and it's basically, so it's to help me with my storyboarding, and it's called Rough, basically, ladies and gentlemen, and it's by Pierre Pochet, and this really is helping me, just very basic with eyes and faces and stuff. But because at the moment I'm showing stick figures for my DP and stuff, and they're sort of going, yeah, they get it, but it's like, I wish I was better. It must really help for you.
I think it, it's storyboards are definitely one of my sort of favorite things in a way, but they're definitely used for different purposes. I do kind of treat them as an almost full kind of like rendering concept art, light direction, production design, camera movements, blocking, but they don't have to be, because they can just be, as long as you are, how you're using them makes sense to you. It can be like, I mean, look at these brilliant Scorsese storyboards for things like Raging Bull and stuff like that. Really sort of simplistic and basic, but they are very, very specific of what the details that you can get cluttered, I think, with storyboard having too much information. But
I like that. That's made me feel more confident about myself. But it's true, my DP, Andrew Rogers, my main DP, but various other ones, they always go, no, I get it. I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see where your angle is. Don't worry about it being a terrible drawing. I do get the piss taken out of me by the rest of the crew, but it doesn't matter. It's like, well, okay, we can have a laugh about it, but trying to create something is really hard. It's going like, and that must have been really interesting, I think, for you. And again, I wonder if you took your technique straight away, your storyboards, your design, your thought process, because you went from the Hallow to the Nun, right? That's for anyone out there, that's a massive leap to go from your first independent movie to the Nun, which was made for, for most Hollywood budgets, reasonable standard, but it's the biggest grossing movie in all of the Conjuring franchise, which is kind of incredible, and fair play to you for your second film. Huge congrats, clapping massively from the stand. How was that leap? Do you know what I mean? Before we get into Whistle, because I think that's such a great thing. Your second film was this massive juggernaut.
Well, what actually happened was I went from the Hallow, which, I was really thrilled to get that in the Sundance Film Festival, which was a massive, just a really amazing experience to sort of actually have a horror movie sort of treated with a certain, acceptance into this like great film festival in the midnight section, and you'd be able to go out there and premiere. It was actually like pretty much today, I think 11 years ago, 2015.
Wow. 15, yeah, it would have been.
It was like January the 23rd, I think it premiered. So just, and that was just a brilliant experience, and that obviously then puts you in you get sort of a certain amount of exposure. Around the same time, I got the job to make the new Crow movie at that time.
Yes.
So actually, I didn't go from the Hallow into the Nun. I went from the Hallow into the Crow.
And this was Jason Momoa as well, right? This was starring Jason Momoa.
This was actually pre-Jason Momoa. I mean, I won't go into too much detail, but I did 2 versions of the Crow over a sort of 3.5 year period. And the second one was Jason Momoa. But the first one was, we went into full pre-production and went into like location scouting and casting and everything. So that was the first move from the Hallow, and then going into the next production, and that was sort of like, okay, here we go. This is it. And then when that...
Well, even that, Corin, is a big leap. That's kind of like, you're going from an indie movie to suddenly going to The Crow, which, it didn't get made, that version, but that leap in itself is massive.
So it was a similar feeling to the Hallow, but now in a sort of expanded, escalated way, because the Hallow was like, after 8 years, finally sort of like being on set and being like, oh my God, we're actually making a movie. This is an actual feature film. When I was doing The Crow, it was like, okay, now the roller coaster's fully off, and this is the next one. I can't believe that the second movie I'm doing is a remake of one of my most beloved movies. But here we go.
Here we go. I'm going for it.
When it went down, and it didn't happen the first time, then I went back to some of my other ideas and my monster movies and the things I was like looking to do after the Hallow anyway, before The Crow happened. I had this big monster movie, survival movie in the mountains. Still one I'm looking forward to making.
Yeah, it'll happen.
This is one that will be 24 years of looking forward to making it, since 2002. So so then somewhere in that, and I'd got an agent from Sundance. I got agents and got the team had built up around me. So suddenly I was getting scripts, and then the Nun came in, and it was a sort of like, obviously I'm a fan of the Conjuring movies,
of course,
James Wan's work, but it was that sort of like, I've been putting so much work into my own original ideas to do next. I hadn't thought that my next movie could be about a demonic nun, but it was like the opportunity presented itself. It was a great, really great, fun script of Gary Doberman's and James Wyatt's. And obviously I could recognize, how your career and things can go and decision making. So I sort of considered it and then did the meetings and then got that job. And then suddenly it was like the difference between the Hallow, which was like independent movie, 8 years of trying to raise funds and get in front of the
around. Yeah, trying to get around.
It was like the opposite. It was like a studio movie where it's like, it's already been ordered. The movie's going to happen. It's there, there's, as they call it, there's a big appetite for this movie. It's happening. I'm making it. And actually at the time, I remember the first question was, because when I made the Hallow, my wife and I had our first daughter, like, just a few weeks before we went into pre-production. And so it was like everything happening at the same time, And then with the nun, we had our second daughter. We sort of knew when the due date was. And so we had to, when I told them, and I was like, I'm so excited to make this film. There's one thing I need to tell you. And they were sort of very cool. And they said, well, look, do you want to sort of wait until after your daughter's born before we go and make this film?
Wow, how nice.
Or do you want to, or do you want to do it before? And part of me wanted to wait and just like, I want to get the baby out, born and then sort of go off and make the movie. But they indicated that they would really love it if we could make the movie before. So before I knew it, we were in sort of pre-production. Wow. 14 weeks away from shooting in Romania, in the Abbeys and everything. And so it was another adventure. And it didn't really sort of stop and think, oh God, the scale of this. And, it was different, but not that different. It was still making a movie. It still involved a crew. It still involved going on location scouts and doing all the things that I'd now done. But there was more solidarity in the overall production because it was the studio that was behind it all. So
so same but different, same but just more. I always see it that way. It's very similar, but at the end of the day, it's just you, your cameraman, your camera, and your actors, and camera woman. And that's kind of it. You're in this bubble. Everything else around it is just kind of noise sometimes. In the world.
I suppose then what you realize is, the pros and cons of the independent one is that, you are a bit more like left to your own devices, and you're doing things. You have an idea and you kind of like hash it out, and you sort of like do it a bit handmade, or you ask someone and you get it done. And then on the studio one, it was a little bit more like this process that has to go around and get approved and go through departments, and it just sort of like little things become bigger things. So
I see. Yeah, it's not as easy as going, I want that yellow t-shirt. Okay, I'll just go buy it and take it. Yeah, it's like one of the yellow t-shirt. It's got to go through a whole process before that yellow t-shirt comes back. What design, who from, what's that? Yeah, all that good stuff. That's quite incredible. How much did you have to pitch to get the nun? And what did you do for that? Just before we get on to our amazing new film.
Memory of it was, and I remember I had a great supporter in Michael Clear, who was running Atomic Monster with James. I don't know if he was in Sundance or he saw the Hallow. So he'd sort of championed me. So when I read the script and like immediately kind of like recognized that this was a really kind of like fun story. And I loved the old schoolness of it. And what I loved was the sort of, I kind of thought, oh, this could kind of be like my Dracula. Because
I love that. Yeah.
The film, but there's only we keep remaking Dracula or Frankenstein or whatever, and I do want to make original stories. And although the nun is part of the Conjuring world universe, it still was the first nun to come out of the Conjuring 2. So there was a part of me that was like, once I got over the idea that, well, I hadn't ever thought of doing a demonic nun movie because it wasn't on my
to-do list,
bingo card.
Yeah, exactly.
Then I was like, but if I do a demonic nun movie and I treat it a bit like a sort of classic, my Dracula, It's like there's this monster in an abbey in the mountains in Romania, and all the nuns are dying, and no one knows why, and it's an investigation. I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that. And I loved that it was set in that period. So there was lots of things that I could get my teeth into. And once I sort of found that out and got excited to, I guess it was, I can't really remember. I remember just doing a Zoom with the guys, at New Line and Atomic Monster, Warner Brothers, and then we were pretty much going ahead and making it after that.
Wow! So it was pretty quick. There wasn't like, we're pitching, you're going in again out, and it seemed like it's quite a simple process of we want Corin. Okay, cool. I'll chat to you, and wow, how nice. That's your memory of it, but you might have, who knows what happened. That's amazing.
But I think when you find a project that you just sort of like genuinely like, this is how we do it, and this is what I do, and here's, mate, that's the nun.
Yeah, come on. Oh, there's some nun stuff. We used this like it's such a great film. We used it as an example on our last film as well that we've just made. And we used like clips from it to show the crew, this is what we're going for. It's still such a fantastic movie, mate. It really, really is. It's got so much going for it. Yeah.
This was like early drawings on the nun.
Oh, wow. Mate, that looks so cool. So Romanian depth. And basically a graveyard in front and then a castle behind or a house behind.
I think I did some sketches
and showed them like this. I'd give you the job.
Yeah, I didn't do that one, but I did some kind of weird.
Oh wow, that one on the right already looks like Bonnie Aaron's there. Yeah. She was Nellie in the last film we did. Bonnie, yeah, she's character. She's great. Look at that one.
Corridor of Crosses.
Oh, fabulous! Look at that spin around. I love it. Well, look, and we'll
yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow, just saw another amazing image. Gangs of London aside, which is incredible, we'll move on from that for now. But then obviously now you've come with Whistle, which is kind of like you've described it, I think, as Breakfast Club sort of meets this Nightmare on Elm Street. It's got this vibe of these kids at school, but yet you've got these wonderful deaths. So when it came to you, because it's a team that came to you, right? Because you haven't written this one. So I'm just interested in that process for you as a director to go, okay, this is my next film, and maybe why, the creature side of it, these sort of wonderful ideas that you could bring to this, I imagine.
Yeah, it was, I think, three things. As what I've been saying last night at this premiere as well, as an English fan of horror and movies, I'd grown up in the 80s and watched a lot of 80s kind of American high school movies like Breakfast Club, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and horror movies in that era of Nightmare on Elm Street and Fright Night and The Blob and Lost Boys. And there is a certain kind of really fun, entertaining aspect to that era of movies. And I'd sort of always wanted to do my version of them, or like, I wonder if I'll ever do like an American high school movie. It feels like a sort of genre in itself. There's something kind of still in my head more like dreamlike about it than doing it in a British high school.
Yes, always better. I don't know. I'm the same as you. I feel it's all like all my horror movies they're in a set in America. It just feels better. Yeah.
So that's probably been in me. And then, although I wasn't like openly on a quest, like I wasn't on a quest to make a demonic nun movie, I wasn't on a quest to make a American high school movie, but I did sort of harbor a desire of, I wonder what that would be like if I could find the right script or idea. And then Owen Edgerton's script comes my way. And it was called Untimely, and it was based on his own short story, Untimely. And it was centering around this thing called a death whistle, which was something that, again, I sort of faintly felt might be real, having heard about it in Ghostbusters. But didn't know much about it. Read Owen's script, loved this mythology, this really simple, elegant, effective, chilling and moving mythology about a whistle, an ancient cursed artifact that when you hear the sound it makes, it will call your future death to come and hunt you down. And it was sort of like one of those simple mythologies that I was like, this is, as a fan of horror and having seen lots of movies, it's like, this is, it's a variant on the cursed videotape from Ring or the configuration box in Hellraiser or elements of Final Destination. But what makes it specific and different was it's your own specific fate that you will be faced by, how you end up, whether that's in, sadly in a shock accident in a couple of weeks, or in 90 years if you live to be a completely sort of ancient version of yourself. Whatever and however you end up, that's what comes to kind of claim you and give you its death. So I thought, well, this is exciting. But then I went back and I was like, but the whistle, like, I haven't seen the Death Whistle movie yet. Have you?
Yeah. Nope. It's true.
Immediately I was like, and I had to do a quick check in case there'd been like 5 that I didn't know about. So I was like, that's pretty shocking to have a horror movie in front of me that I could make that's about something that no one's properly seen yet. So, and then it was this like really beautiful kind of story of teenage angst and heartbreak and romance and all those things that I said, like, that I'd been, got stored up since I was at school. So I was kind of putting it all together and got the job and went sort of into it and was really happy to bring this one to the screen. This is the Death Whistle in Choker.
It's so cool. It's such a cool design as well. Did you have a big hand in designing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the first things, whilst casting the human characters, was like, this thing is a lead character in the movie. It's got to hold up, again, going back to the monster conversation, it was like, along with the death sequences that were all quite, elaborate and outrageous and imaginative and varied and different, or they all had their own different sort of subgenre of horror, and they're dictated by the person's actual fate. The whistle itself was like, it has to feel real, it has to feel ancient, passed down for thousands of years, and it has to sort of hold up in a sort of close up that can, be as kind of have a presence as much as the lead character.
Yeah.
So I work with a Spanish concept artist, Daniel Carrasco, super talented guy, and we went through many designs to get to. Because you're also like, when have we got the right to? Who knows? So I've got to call it and say, this is the design.
Yes, you get to a point where you've gone, right, we've gone through loads now. Everyone's gone, they've put their 2 pennants in, and you're like, yeah, okay, I need to. This is the one now. Let's move forward, and it's really cool. I think what you've done here is really fascinating, because if you look at your journey and where you've sort of come from and your trajectory, this feels like, it feels very you, but it also feels fresh because you've, in a way, and I'm sure you have, but not necessarily done comedy. In your films, there's comedy elements, but this is funny. This is humor within the horror genre, which is a different genre to the Nun, let's say. You're suddenly going down this much funnier path of some great funny moments, some beautiful moments. So what was the challenge?
Credit to Owen on that, Owen's script and, the balance of sort of humor and heart. I mean, that was the thing as well. I'm always looking for emotion and characters that are characters you can care for. And
yes,
didn't want to make an American high school movie, which every character is like a sort of cynical, snarky character that they're just there to get killed. I wanted to be characters that you were interesting and you cared for them in different ways. And so when the terror starts to consume them and they're breaking apart, it's sort of also heart-wrenching. And they're trying to, you care for them when they're getting faced by their death.
Yes, which is so cool. Such an interesting concept to not have a one baddie like the Nun. You've got a load of them, so that they can haunt you and chase you around.
The baddie is yourself. That was what's really, really just, again, simple and exciting. It's like the villain of the movie. I mean, it's presided over by this ancient, misunderstood kind of ancient object. Which has a lot of sort of mystery in its own right, but the cause of death is your own fate. That's also quite deep, and
very deep.
The fourth aspect that really made me want to do the movie was actually the kind of conversation about grief and mortality, and the idea that we're all humans. We're only when we're born, so is our death. When we're born, we've got a limited time, and we don't know how long that is. So the sort of underlying nature of this memento mori, which means remember that you will die, which is a sort of message in the movie that once I kind of deciphered that, I find that very positive in the sense it's like, recognize that you will die. And so live your life in a free way and in a way that's, kind and, unhindered.
I love that. Yeah, and if you can, that's so lovely. And then on that, and I suppose it's the final question, is the difference for you and your thought process as a director to choose those moments with your camera angles or the shots to get not just the heart here, but certainly the comedy and those humor moments. Were you doing something different? Or did you plan different shots or to hang on things?
I did make a very conscious decision on this movie, partly through sort of wanting it to have a slightly retro styling, inspired by those movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Breakfast Club and Lost Boys, the sort of slightly older school movie making. And a lot of, I just wanted to do more on like track and dolly, steady cam, and really, really, really figure out the blocking more in this movie. And I worked with Bjorn Charpentier, my DOP. And I just, each time you get the chance to do a movie, and sometimes there's years in between, I'm proud of all the movies I've made, but, sometimes they don't turn out exactly what was in your head, and you have to figure out why. And it's partly because you're adapting to constraints that are to do with time or money. And then it's to do with also your confidence and your experience and your, the vision you're trying to carry off. And I think I've trained so much on the music video aesthetic of having one day to shoot an entire music video and having normally like 12 hours or 14 if you're lucky, and packing in an entire like story and all this stuff, so that I would sort of adjust my techniques around that and use like handheld or like, and at some point when I did Whistle, I was like, let's really try and just like do a really sort of solid storytelling with our camera and our camera moves and our lenses. So there was, I think, just even more of a conscious decision, but also maybe a confidence to adhere to our sort of plans more than I had done in the past, which I'm really proud of how that, I think, translates. I think that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely does. It really is. It's impressive. It's really wonderful. I love what you've done with Whistle. I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Really, like you say, love those shots. I love the way you held that for a moment, the lens choices. Everything was just really lovely and it's brilliant. So congratulations. Look, Corin, honestly, this has been a real treat for me. I've been a fan for a while, so this has been fun as hell to chat to you. So thank you very much.
Nice to talk in some more detail, outside of the regular questions as well. So yeah, thanks.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, buddy. All the best with it. Cheers now.
See you.
Bye.